My name is Mike Tonsing. I'm the Senior Director of Brand and Product Marketing at SunPower, and we're excited to bring you a talk today with a good friend and colleague, Phil Sharp. Just to introduce you and tell you a little bit about Phil. Phil Sharp is a world-class professional skipper. Phil has been a multiple-time world champion and 3-time Guinness World Record holder, including one just a few months ago. During his races, Phil is sometimes at sea by himself for a few weeks at a time, and certainly is qualified to speak on today's topic, which is how to work and live in isolation. Phil, in addition to being a sailor, is also an engineer. He is a master's graduate from Imperial College London in mechanical engineering and specializes in composite design and clean tech innovations. So he's able to combine his skills for engineering and sailing as the co-founder and CTO of OceansLab. Here he showcases top renewable energy technologies that can be used to promote and advance a clean maritime industry today and tomorrow. That's how Phil and I know each other and work together. I'm extremely honored that about 260 SunPower Maxion solar cells are aboard Phil's boat and are powering his onboard communications and navigation equipment. We're also very proud as SunPower to stand with him for cleaner oceans. So what Phil shows, and what I in particular love to support, is that renewable energy is actually a performance advantage. He's proven this by winning his racing circuits while being the only zero emissions boat and competing against boats that are drawing from fossil fuels. He's also set multiple world speed records, again, having no fossil fuels aboard. He is a true optimist. He is a solar pioneer. And Phil, it is really an honor and privilege to be with you today. So thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for a flattering introduction, and it's great to be here today to talk to you and SunPower and try and share my experiences on isolation in some pretty challenging and uncertain times.
Great. Well, Phil, as we sit here today, we're both in our comfortable living rooms, but going on 5 weeks now of isolation. Can you talk a little bit about some of the conditions when you're at sea? You're sometimes off for weeks at a time. What is it like out there when you're in isolation?
Inevitably, everything gets more challenging when you're alone on a boat. You suddenly have everything to manage. You have yourself to manage, you have the navigation to manage, you have to keep your boat moving 100% the whole time. I think the unique thing about ocean racing is that it is 24/7. So when you start the race to when you finish the week several later, there is no time to relax, there's no slowdown, there's no let up. You are trying to send that boat 100% the whole time, night and day. So it can be very fatiguing. You have to reduce your sleep to around 3 hours a night to be competitive. So psychologically, it can be very, very tough. The conditions you're presented with when you're out on the water can be extremely hostile. Living on the ocean is not a natural thing. The environment tends to eat away at you slowly over time. You can have waves constantly breaking over the boat for sometimes a week at a time. Sending the boat through gales for several days can really start to eat away at your psychological comfort. When you've been thrown around the boat in the middle of a storm, sometimes you have to hang on to for safety, and it means getting up and changing sails in the middle of the night, clinging to a foredeck which is being launched and slammed up and down repetitively. It can be a pretty unnerving experience, and it's really important to keep focused on that goal of getting to the finish at all times, and the things you do in isolation suddenly become quite a lot easier. You can feel yourself moving towards that end objective, and really get through those days. But for sure, it can make you feel very small on a boat. Being in 8 meter seas in what seem like relentless conditions that are not going to change, and sometimes the only highlight can be drinking a cup of tea at the end of the day.
I can only imagine. Wow, 3 hours of sleep a night with waves crashing on the bow. That sounds pretty intense. Phil, I'll be honest, we've known each other for a few years, and just having spent a lot of time on the phone with you at or around different races and reading about you going into different conditions, you strike me as someone that's nearly fearless. You put yourself in some pretty tough spots, and you're out there in some pretty harrowing conditions. Are there times when even someone like you who's been through and seen some pretty ugly conditions, are there times where you've felt really down? I know, speaking for myself, there have been up and downs through this experience, just even during these 5 weeks, and sometimes it's tough to manage those ups and downs. What would you say to people that are feeling a little bit down right now? Have you experienced that?
I think there's low points in every race, and when you're alone, I think those emotions can be really exaggerated, particularly when there's such a huge level of uncertainty ahead of you. And we've all got our objectives of where we want to go in life, and I think a lot of people have seen those effectively almost sort of seem to fall away very quickly. So it can be very difficult to pick yourself up and find a direction. I think if there's something I've experienced in ocean racing, it's about trying to realize that you have to adapt to the environment, and occasionally you will get these setbacks. I mean, I had an occasion in the solo transat from Plymouth to New York where I was still 1,000 miles from reaching the finish, and my mainsail completely ripped in half. The way I was going, I had to sail upwinds to get to New York. So I suddenly, my progress towards New York just halted, and I was running low on food. I was running low on water. I had to try and find a way of getting the boat moving again, and it was a huge disappointment because I was in the lead at the time. I suddenly realized that wasn't possible anymore. My original objectives were thrown out of the window, and at that time what I think really helped was to quickly redefine my objectives, my short-term objectives, and that enabled me to suddenly start focusing positively on the situation, start being constructive. And I think as soon as you can get your head down and start being constructive and dealing with these new conditions and giving yourself some realistic new objectives to work towards, the better. And that really helps find that mindset where you can adapt quickly, make positive change, and then reach some short-term goals. And in this case, in this race, I managed to finish the race, which was a huge success in just finishing the race with the boat I had. And the bonus was that I still finished on the podium as a result of staying constructive at that time.
Phil, now that you're back on shore and you're experiencing a different kind of isolation, how has your mission through OceansLab changed, and how has the pandemic affected the way that you look at maritime emissions?
Well, I think for me personally, this time has really given an opportunity to take a step back and look at our overall mission. And I mean, interestingly enough, I think it's twofold. I think it enables us to have more time to really focus on our future, progressing our future objectives and developing our project longer term. It allows, I think, more time for creativity at the moment. So for sort of planning, it's, I think, really valuable at the moment. The interesting situation with what we're seeing at the moment with the huge reduction in pollution and emissions due to the current situation has provided a really interesting reference point for what is possible if we can really reduce emissions, and that has almost enhanced our real objectives, but also our hunger to promote this rapid change from fossil fuel power to renewable power for not only transport on the ocean, but for mobility in general. But for OceansLab's mission, I think it really shows that now what is possible if we do want to alter our mindset towards clean transport. And yeah, I think it really adds some important some important focal point and scientific reference point for studies going forward.
Phil, I'll close with one more question on a personal note. So you and your wife, Rebecca, welcomed your first child into the world about 9 months ago?
Yeah, 9 months. Since 9 months, we've had a bit more noise in the household.
How would you say that being a father has affected the way that you view isolation and your current isolation?
I think yeah, since I've become a father, I think it reinforces just how valuable time is, and with having all this time at home, I think you know, it really also highlights just the importance of having family time and how that really is a life priority. And it sort of questions whether we really need to spend this extra time traveling to a meeting. We're not totally convinced about whether we need to go there. And that for me, I think is, you know, it suddenly alters our idea of what is necessarily important in life, and perhaps you know, and something I really hope is it changes people's idea and perception for the long term. I think you know, it gives. The other thing is, it really, until you have a child, you don't really quite think about the implications for the next generation. But now I think it's really hit home that what we do over the next few years, and particularly in this decade, is going to have a huge impact on the next generation and what happens to climate change and the globe over the next century. And yeah, I mean, the people, the next generation is really going to be the people going to be living in this environment and trying to deal with the problems that we leave them. And we know that every year we delay our transition towards a clean future is going to be even more work to undo that. So the earlier we can really address this, the better. And I really hope that this situation has opened people's eyes as to what is possible. And you know, I really think it can give people the opportunity to really change their lifestyles, to know really that it's possible to change your work culture and then move towards a community where we are more independent, and inevitably we can start undoing some of the damage that we've done and to move towards a future clean ecosystem for all.
Well, that's very well said. And Phil, thanks for spending time with us. I think that your work shows us what's possible. So thanks for doing everything that you are, and thanks for spending time with us today. So
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Soon.